Welcome back, scoundrels, to Horror in the Hills. I'm Bran,
Robbie. Sarah.
and this is Movies with My Monsters, where I watch a scary horror type movie with my monsters here, and then I talk to them about it. So, what did we watch this time?
Scream. Scream 1.
Scream 1. And in all honesty, it's been like a week and a half since we watched it, so we'll see how this goes. Oh, jeez, I tried to pull my headphones off. I don't need them anyways. So anyways, these guys have a little bit of something on their own that they want to talk about in regards to this movie. So maybe we'll hit those things first. But first, do you guys want to try to summarize it?
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Alright, so in the town of Woodsboro, the series of grisly murders starts happening, centered around our final girl, Sydney Prescott, and everything builds up to party night. And yeah, that's a nice quick summary. Did that help you remember anything?
Yeah.
Okay. So who wants to go first?
I do.
Okay.
I like that there's a lack of evidence to us as the audience and the people trying to figure out who's doing the murders in the movie.
Is there... Hold on before you start jumping in. Is there a lack of evidence or is there an abundance of evidence?
In abundance.
Okay, because there's quite a bit of difference. Lack of evidence would mean that there's like hardly anything to point us in the direction. But, as Randy says, everybody's a suspect. So there's an overabundance of evidence. And sometimes you're given stuff and then it kind of undercuts it a little bit, doesn't it? So, do you remember when we were talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer?
No.
I talked about the red herring, and I talked
yeah.
about how that movie was an example of a not very good whodunit. And I said we were going to watch one that is a lot better. This is the one I was talking about that's a lot better. Because we have, right from the start, we have the actual killers introduced. So there's reason to suspect them, but there's also reasons to not sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which gives us the setup with everybody's a suspect.
Because they play on the teacher a little bit, or the principal a little bit,
Yeah.
and then immediately undercut that. I mean, pretty much everybody except for Sydney is a suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Her boyfriend especially, because it's awfully convenient that he shows up right after a murder or something.
Are you talking about the opening scene?
Yeah.
Well,
And that they found the mask right after he came in, pretty much.
or are you talking about when she's home alone and gets attacked the first time?
When she's home alone and gets attacked the first time.
That is awfully convenient.
Uh-huh. But it's also convenient that her dad's not home.
Well, and that is just a convenience because he's supposed to be on a business trip, right?
Yeah.
So there is a reason for him to not be home. I mean, it is a plot convenience, but it doesn't actually detract from the story much because a lot of people do that in real life. Do you have something you want to talk about?
Okay. I have a thought that her boyfriend's doing the phone calls because as she's talking about the voice that he does for when he's doing the phone calls, and the other guys coming in to do the murdering. And I also think that because when he's trying to get in the door, or he leaves and then right after that her boyfriend and comes in the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has the cellular phone?
But at the end it shows that they're using voice scramblers.
Yeah, I suppose that works. Yeah, it's that way they can mask their voice, that way you can't tell who it is. Yeah, that's one theory. I personally think maybe it's on the other end, that Stu's the one doing most of the phone calls, and Billy's the one killing people, because Stu doesn't really seem as committed to the Enterprise as Billy is. This is kind of something fun that he's doing, because what else is he going to do? But Billy actually wants to cause harm and hurt people, and in particularly Sydney, right? So why do you think that is? Why do you think he wants to cause particular harm to Sydney? Do you remember what his motive was?
No.
So Sydney's mom was having an affair with his dad, right?
Right.
Do you know what an affair is?
Yeah. No.
Affair is a secret relationship. And Billy's dad was already married to another woman. And so was Sydney's mom. She was married to his dad. So they're having this secret relationship and got found out. Maureen, Sydney's mom, is actually having several affairs. So is she being Fidelius?
No.
No, not at all. Not even close. But, caused Billy's mom to leave his family. And he was really upset about that. And probably have some other things going on mentally that drove him to want to murder people. Starting with Maureen, Sydney's mom. And I think that's why... So, based on that, why do you think he might want to cause more harm to Sydney?
To make sure that she doesn't start doing things like that, maybe?
It's a possibility. What about you, Guy?
Maybe to take it out on someone else.
Kinda. I think it's more likely that he's continuing to punish Maureen through her family. That even though Maureen was the more direct cause of his family breaking up and the harm that was caused to him, because he's still feeling that hurt, he has to take it out on her family too. And everybody else is just...
There. And
there.
in the way.
Kind of in the way. Maybe a means of covering it up. Maybe that rage is just boiled up and he just wants to hurt as many people as possible. So, but his target is Sydney. Inconsequential. Everybody else is inconsequential around Sydney. They just get caught up in it. And it's, again, a means for them to cover their tracks. Somebody's attacking these kids, right?
Yeah.
And then, what is their plan? Do you remember?
No.
Oh my gosh. Their plan is that at the party, more people are going to die, and they got attacked also, so they stab each other to make it look like they were attacked, but they're supposed to be stabbed in a way that they would survive. So that way they could be the lone survivors and the heroes of Woodsboro or whatever, and then move on someplace else or whatever, or maybe a couple years down the road, continue their serial killing. Just had a thought about connections to real life serial killers with these, and because there are quite a few pairs in real life, and I believe, and I could be very wrong on this, many of them, one of them is the main person, the person who wants to do all the killing, and they just, maybe they're charismatic enough or whatever, but they convince another person to help them, either directly killing people or luring people in or whatever. That's something I might have to explore later on when I talk about this with somebody else. Maybe. Alright, what else do you have?
Are there gonna be questions afterwards?
We'll see.
Okay. I don't think it was really scary. More gory.
Well, that comes into... A lot of times people challenge movies and books on whether or not they're horror or not. And horror doesn't necessarily have to be scary, right?
Right? Yeah.
And the first thing that I think a lot of people forget is that it's horror not necessarily because we're scared, but because the characters within the movie are supposed to be scared. Then if you were going through that, do you think you'd be pretty scared?
Yeah.
Be terrified. It's a very scary situation. So it's not necessarily about us being scared. It's about whether or not the characters are scared, I think, is the more important question to determine if something's horror or not. Now, within that, horror encompasses a lot of things, like gore, which is usually what slasher-type movies are, is more based on the gore and disgusting things, gross things. Body horror is very similar, that it not supposed to invoke a sense of terror, but of disgust. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Makes sense? But then you have, like, the jump scary stuff through, like, Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
and host and stuff like that, where it is supposed to elicit a reaction out of the audience and get us to feel something with it. And then more psychological based stuff makes you think and you empathize with that character more, and it's builds a certain sense of tension. And I'm saying this after saying, that these movies aren't necessarily intended for us to feel terror, but like psychological is you don't know what's going on. You can't determine reality from things that your mind is making up. I don't know if we've really watched anything that would fit that yet. So there are different aspects to it, and where horror where the actual horror in the movie comes from. So that's why, like, when we watch some things, you're not necessarily going to be scared. It might be trying to get a different emotion out of you, or maybe sometimes things will be a little bit too deep to understand. Like, there's a lot of things that even I have a hard time understanding the first couple times watching something. You look like you have something to say, Robbie.
I don't.
Oh, you're just paying attention to me. So does that address that?
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want? Follow-up questions? Either of you?
I was just wondering what your favorite subgenre of horror is.
I used to be a slasher snob. I would only watch like Freddy Krueger, the Friday the 13th movies, these stuff like that. But I've expanded and I've actually gotten into a lot of the more psychological stuff. Just because it's deeper and it makes you think, and I like body horror stuff too.
I like the more paranormal ones like Host.
Supernaturals?
Yeah. I like slasher.
So far, you say that. But on that, so did you find it scary?
Yeah.
I know, because you ran out of the room a couple times. What was it about it that made it scary for you?
I kept thinking about my toy, my knife that looks exactly like his knife.
Mm-hmm.
I found it kept scaring me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But what about it? Was it because it was a lot more realistic? Maybe? That it seemed like something that could actually happen?
Yeah.
Rather than like this supernatural stuff where it's just loud noises and things that are intended to make you jump?
Yeah.
Because that stuff scares you too. Alright. Do you have any other topics you want to discuss there, Robbie?
No.
Alright, well, if anything comes up, just let me know. Alright, what's your last?
I didn't have anything
I
else.
thought you said you had 3 things.
I did. I talked about the abundance of evidence, the setup with everyone's a suspect.
Oh, so it just got covered under.
Yeah.
So, as you were watching the movie, who was your main suspect all throughout? The person you came back to the most.
Billy.
Okay, why?
Like I said, it's always convenient that he comes in after he's been attacked. And he had this really weird look on his face all the time.
Like, he looked a little bit crazy, maybe?
Mm-hmm. I thought it was one of the camera people.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning they're following,
Sydney?
Yeah. And later she puts the camera under the TV.
And she's really interested in getting the big scoop, right?
Yeah. I thought that the news lady would be it too at one point. Because I thought that maybe she'd be killing people just to get the story. Because that's her job.
Could be. She's got that taste of the hyper dramatic because of the Cotton Weary case.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's his name. It's Cotton something. I'm pretty sure it's Cotton Weary. I was just gonna ask something else and I forgot about it. Did you understand the rules thing for horror movies?
Not really.
Robbie, you trying to remember them?
I remember what they are. The rules?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you understand them?
Kind of. I remember a few. I remember never say I'll be right back. And that's all I can really remember. Oh, and don't have sex.
Okay.
And something else about sex. Or something. Now that I think about it, I can only remember those two as well.
Don't do drugs.
Oh, yeah.
And the virgin always lives, so don't have sex. So the reason why those are there is because those kind of became the unwritten rules of the slasher formula, which we haven't watched any of those movies yet because you're definitely not old enough for them. Close, but not quite. But Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street does a little bit. Halloween falls prey to it, and several movies made particularly in the 80s, followed this, where people who said, "I'll be right back," people were promiscuous or participating in illicit activities, doing drugs, drinking, gambling, people who were just generally kind of crappy people. So like boyfriend who treats his girlfriend bad, or the jokester who doesn't know where the line is, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those people a lot of times died, or were the body counters. So they're pretty much just there to die, because it's a slasher movie. It's what we're going to watch happen. And then usually your final girl is somebody who isn't doing any of those activities, at least on screen. So that's the whole purpose of it. Is this movie is kind of a satire of the slasher genre and its history, and it's kind of poking fun and making fun of that, while at the same time doing many of those things, right?
Yeah.
And it's calling out the tropes, like when Sydney's on the phone, and those movies are dumb because it's somebody, some dumb girl who's running up the stairs when she should be running out the front door. And she goes to run out the front door, but she can't, right?
Yeah.
So she runs upstairs.
Yeah.
And I know people look at it as an audience member, and a lot of times we go, "Oh, that's so stupid. Why would you do that?" But when you're in that kind of a situation, when you're that stressed out and scared, and you're just trying to get away, your brain doesn't function quite right. So something as simple as unlocking a door can become very difficult, or you just forget how to do it, and you choose the easier path. Whether it's actually safe or not, it just, in that moment, you're able to get away. So that was the whole purpose of this movie, was to kind of revitalize the slasher genre, because in the early 90s, those movies started becoming kind of really bad. Or there's still a lot of enjoyable things about them, but they had beat that horse until there's nothing left to beat out of it. And people were losing interest. So other things started coming along, and then Scream happened and kind of re-jolted it, because there's nudity was a big part of the slashers in the 80s, which is why you guys can't watch them yet. And there's no nudity in this. That's why we deemed it okay. It toes that line, right?
Yeah.
And it still addresses these topics, but it does it in a more mature way. And I Know What You Did Last Summer came out like a year after this. It was written by the same person who wrote the screenplay for this. So if you think about those two, can you think, are there a lot of similarities?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's got that whodunit element. The idea of sex is played with a little bit, but not really. It's not a major part of it.
In the second one, the boyfriend is the murderer. Kinda.
Yeah.
Kinda.
But let's just stick to the first ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's a suspect, right?
Yeah.
What else? Hitting those trope lines and kind of calling back on them and making fun of it a little bit. So that became a big thing too. Like a lot of times studios will do that. As after Guardians of the Galaxy, what started happening to a lot of the Marvel properties. So Deadpool and Guardians changed that aspect of the film industry a little bit, because they're comedies, and there were more comedic elements to it. And so, Thor Ragnarok leaned into that comedic element a little bit. A lot more, right?
Yeah.
And while it wasn't necessarily a bad movie, it didn't quite fit for me the way that it should have with the other two Thor movies. So it made it a little less enjoyable for me. But all the other movies started playing on that comedy aspect too. And the studios will do that. Oh, this was really successful. People really enjoyed this. So we're going to follow that formula for everything now. With that, because they don't understand what it is that actually made it successful. They might take a poll and ask people, why did you enjoy this? Oh, the comedy was great. But they don't understand what it was about the comedy that made it great. That it was something that stood out on its own from everything else. Or something like that. So you end up with a lot of clones and copies, and that's what happened with Scream. Anything come up yet? No? So, I know you did, Sarah. Did you have any nightmares from this? Or as a result?
Yeah.
Because you guys generally do pretty good. Even if you do have nightmares, you don't... It's never too bad, right?
Yeah.
That you need us. So that's kind of cool. I appreciate it. I'm the one that's have to deal with you guys if you wake up screaming. Because I'm the one doing this to you, I suppose. So what was your nightmare about? Do you remember?
No.
No? Wasn't too bothersome, though?
No.
Boop. Alright, we'll move on then. Sarah, what was yours? Do you remember?
We just finished the TV show Dr. Quinn, right? So it started out like that. All the characters died. It wasn't shown in the dream. But it was. But you knew it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy from Scream somehow turned into a demon and then came to our house.
Oh, jeez. Yeah?
Yeah.
Was he chasing you around or something? What?
He was running back and forth past me, so I tried to run into one of the crevices in my room to try and hide, and he got me.
Oh, jeez. Do you guys often have nightmares after we watch horror movies?
No.
Or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, it's the first one I've had after a horror movie.
Yeah, maybe because it leans more into that realistic nature. Something that could actually maybe happen.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to some of the other stuff we watch, like Killer Clowns. Right? Or have we watched that yet?
What?
Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
No.
I don't
No.
remember if we watched it yet or not. I watched it. So, we'll watch that here soon, I suppose. So, do we want to get into our normal stuff?
Yeah.
Alright. What was the scariest part, Robbie?
When that one person was stuck in the garage and when she was asking Ghostface if he wanted to play a game where she was the helpless victim, and then he pulled out his knife.
And then just cut her arm?
Yeah.
Yep. I felt you go, nope, and run out of the room. What about you?
If I had to pick a scariest part, it would either be the lightning flash and the transition. from the first murder,
Mm-hmm.
or when he throws the chair through the window.
Yeah, that opening scene's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think what's particularly effective about it is it's actually much gorier than all the rest of the movie, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it sets that up so while you're watching the rest of the movie, your mind kind of adds those extra details in on its own because it's already expecting that stuff to be there. So, do you think it was a good story?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In what ways?
I liked the abundance of evidence, so we didn't know who it was right away. Exactly.
So I think more specifically you appreciate the whodunit aspect of it
Yeah.
and having something to think about throughout the movie. What about you?
I also like the whodunit.
All right. I don't know. It's hard for me to remember because I wasn't far off from age from you guys when I first saw this. I was like 13, maybe 14. So, I was already a little in tune with some of the horror movie stuff. But I don't know. I found it enjoyable. It was somebody running around killing people, which I thought was cool at the time and fun to watch. Now, I like some of the deeper aspects of it, and I like coming up with counter ideas to some of the things that are happening, or some of the things that do happen. But I like that in a lot of movies. Do you have something? Or?
Not related to the topic.
Well, what do you have?
Randy, he's the guy who talked about the horror movies a lot, right?
Yep.
He was another really good suspect because he knows so much about getting away from the villains. Why couldn't he be the villain?
And that's why he's posited as the horror nerd, is to, hey, this guy knows all this stuff about horror movies, so it would be easier for him to do some of this stuff. What did you think of the atmosphere?
I think it was really good. There was a lot of good tension building, especially with the popcorn in the beginning.
Yeah.
I kept thinking to myself, the popcorn, go check on the popcorn before it starts a fire.
But a good example of, she's distracted and now she's worried, so she's not thinking about that anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because that became less important to her brain as to the immediate threat that she was being faced with. What about you, Guy?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. Even though there's a lot of it that takes place during the day.
Yeah. And with the principal, I was like, look behind the door, I kept thinking, look behind the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, bam! There's a guy. I thought it was pretty decent. There's this ongoing sense of dread because things could happen at about any time. There's sometimes Ghostface is creeping around behind him in the background.
Yeah. Like with the mirror in the grocery store.
Like in the grocery store. Or I think there's a scene at the school when they're outside. You see him run between some bushes.
And at the house when he's walking around, when he walks from behind one tree, and he's walking behind the bushes, and then he goes behind another tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What was your favorite thing in the movie?
I like the everybody is a suspect part.
The scene? Or that aspect of it?
That aspect of it, and that the scene really brings it out. It makes you think about it a lot more.
Okay.
I like that. I'm pretty sure that a cop eats a donut and there's a thing where in lots of stories where cops like donuts.
There might be a scene with cop eating a donut. I don't remember. I know Dewey's eating some ice cream at one point. I don't know. I don't know what my favorite part is anymore. Other than what I've already said that I like about it. Least favorite thing.
The gore. I'm not a blood person. When the person who was going to get the beer was smashed into the open garage door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hate him. My least favorite thing was the bathroom scene. When Sydney goes into the bathroom to get away from Billy, and there's those girls in there talking badly about her and her mom, and then all of a sudden there's a ghost face in there. It's a little convoluted. Like, there's not much of a reason for that scene to happen other than the studio wanted it in there. They wanted some extra scenes and they didn't really know what else to do.
Maybe her brain was playing tricks on her.
Maybe. Could be stress-induced hallucinations. Alright. I think that's it. I think we'll wrap it up there because we covered a lot of the other stuff. A lot of the other questions with some of the other stuff. So, thank you everybody for listening. If you made it this far. If you're digging what we're doing here, please share this with other people you think would enjoy it. It's a good way to help us break through the algorithm. And it's a steady, consistent thing, and it gets people who are actually interested in listening to it, rather than just a bunch of people clicking on it and saying, yeah, that's cool, and then never listening again. This is a high subscriber count is nice. Not that I have that, but if you're not getting the views, it doesn't matter. There's a Twitter. The link's down and below. Follow that for channel updates. You can have your own conversations there. I don't intend to get involved in that, but we'll see. Yeah, I got nothing for this one. So, what else? Oh, also, if you want to help support us here a little bit in another way, I do have another channel dealing with tabletop gaming. It's called Weird Cat Gaming. Go check that out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Should be getting back into the swing of things. I was on hiatus for a while to get some other things taken care of. But I'm coming back to that and trying to be better about not just opening stupid boxes of stuff. Anyways, till next time. Toodles.
Bye.